about the journalists that they want to release this information, because if they release the information, then most of the time, the women, many women, they will refuse to do the abortion.
So for me, like, I know all the emotion, all the emotional effects of abortion, all the news, all the information we have today. I know it's not going to be a happy-go-lucky, easy experience. But for me, at this moment in time, I want to finish my A-levels, I want to go to uni, I want to go to a high-powered job, and there's nothing that scares me more today than getting pregnant.
Let me ask you a question. This is going to sound aside from the issue, okay?
Okay.
It's going to sound aside from the issue. But believe me, it's got everything to do with the issue, yeah? Let me tell you something. This is my contention. I don't know. I think you guys come from an atheistic background, yeah? Or agnostic type. Only because someone said it, not because I'm making assumptions. You could have very well been Christians or something, yeah? But how do you attach value to human beings?
Emotional connection.
Now, what I mean, let me tell you what I mean by my question. There's a tree behind you. Okay? What do you see as more morally abhorrent? Cutting down a tree or killing let's say a 5-year-old?
I mean, I think the answer is stood there for us. But
No, it's not stood there for us. From a philosophical perspective, on naturalism, on a firm atomism, on if we're looking at it from the fact that no value has been assigned to anything in particular, I would argue that actually it's the same.
I strongly disagree with
Okay,
you.
can you prove me wrong? On naturalism, on atheism, how do you, as an atheist, as a naturalist, how do you contend with the fact that if I get a big tree and I cut it down, let me make it even more crude. Let me make it a bit more crude. If I go to the butcher, meat shop, you know that slab, that big chunk of meat that you find, hanging. On naturalism, on atheism, your value as a human being is the same as the value of that piece of meat.
I'm not a naturalist myself.
So what are you then?
I have no idea.
Just okay, all right.
I'm agnostic.
I'm very happy with that admission.
So I couldn't tell you the answer to the God question for you at all.
No problem.
But for me, the human being, the 5-year-old, has that thought, that consciousness, that experience. A tree doesn't have experience.
Fine, that's good. So first and foremost, I'm happy that you've kind of on naturalism, on atheism, not naturalism, I'm not even a naturalist, but on atheism, on a non-God construct, you've admitted that at best, what we can achieve in terms of attaching value to human beings is a subjective value attachment. It's not going to be an objective value attachment, in the sense that, for me, you started off by acknowledging in essence really, that this is a subjective opinion, that it's just because it has consciousness, right? And it has this experience and that experience. Right? I'm not saying your subjective opinion doesn't matter. It does matter. And we care about it. We really do, yeah? And I think it's a correct one, in fact. First problem identified is that there is no objective way to attach value to human beings over and above any other life form or even inanimate object with the same chemical constructs as the human being. That now we've discussed and we've come to realize. Now, on naturalism or atheism, it's impossible. I would argue that on theism, it's not impossible, because if we believe in an entity that's an all-knowing, all-powerful entity, then that entity can attach value to said entities, other entities. Do you see how that works? So that's point number one, which is the value problem in atheism. It is a value problem, and it's not found a solution. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no philosopher that's ever come in the post-enlightenment, post-modern world that has ever found a solution to this problem. So by you not having an answer, it's not it doesn't say anything about your intelligence. It really doesn't. It just says that we don't have a solution. As a community of people, if we want to look at this from an atheistic, naturalistic perspective, we don't have a solution for it. There is no reason to attach any value to human being over and above the value you have for any other thing on an objective level. Now, you said from a subjective perspective that you're really saying intrinsically there are attributes that human being has which are, you could even argue, superior to other attributes. Would you say that? So for example, the fact that human being is a conscientious sentient being that has the ability to reason and has language capabilities, this renders human being above and beyond, in terms of value, trees and other inanimate, well, trees are living, but let's say even inanimate objects, yeah? Would you agree with that? Do you know what I would say then? Do you know what I would say? I say you're right. If you say that on a subjective level, you guys are being subjective, but I'm saying, look, my objective reasoning, because I get it from religion, right? And your subjective understanding now has come together. We agree the same thing. Coming to abortion. What's this got to do with abortion? I'll tell you. Coming to abortion. First and foremost, the Islamic position is not as rigid as the Catholic position. It's quite similar to the Protestant position, actually. The Protestant Christian position it allows it in certain circumstances. It's not an absolute no in all circumstances. Yeah. But if we were to employ a scientific reasoning to this question, I want to ask you guys a serious question here. When does a human become a human?
When they can think but not make decisions, because technically you can't really make a good solid decision to make intelligent, good decisions.
Okay, so if a human can't make intelligent, good decisions, they're not human. Okay. No, it's okay. We'll come back to it.
Come back to the way your brain thinks. For me, make three basic processes.
So thinking.
The heart.
Neurotransmissions.
Neurotransmissions. And just kind of general, existing, touch. That's what
okay,
it is.
so
existence. Tests where you touch the woman's stomach and they react.
Fine. So your definition, is number one, the heart. So I'm guessing you're talking about you're talking not palpitations, but you're talking about heartbeat. Yeah. When the heartbeat becomes visible to a human being, which is, by the way, anything between 36 to 39 days from a genome perspective. Yeah. If you look at it embryologically, it's anything between 36 to 39 days. And you said neurotransmissions, so that presupposes the existence of a brain. And number three, you said the ability to touch things. Okay.
Feel touch.
Let me ask you a question then. What if some human being that's 40 years old doesn't have that ability to touch and feel?
Yeah, but it's still gonna have a heart, a neurotransmitter.
Yeah. Okay. So any one of the right. So
let's go with 2 out of 3.
So you're saying 2 out.
If your heart isn't beating, then you're not alive.
Right? Does it have to be 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3?
1 out of 3.
Heart
is dead.
He's saying 1 out of 3.
If your heart isn't beating, then you're dead.
Can we go with 1 out of 3 here?
I don't agree with the government. 24 weeks.
No, forget about the government. I don't care about the government. Okay, I really don't. You know, in a sense, I mean, that has nothing to do with philosophical endeavor. What they say and what they announce and what they say and what they write down. It's not relevant. Yeah. 24 weeks is something interesting as well. Yeah. So that's not an arbitrary. It's not completely arbitrary number. It's not, because 6 months is the time a baby can be alive without an incubator. Yeah. That's the reason why they've chosen that period of time, because you can have a child that's alive outside of the womb at 6 months. That's their logic. That's their rationality. In this country, it's illegal to have an abortion after that period of time. So 24 weeks.
Is it 120 days?
No. It's 24 weeks. It's 6 months. Yeah. So
it depends on the country then.
now listen. Let me tell you something. Let's go with your one. Is it okay now if we go with 1 out of 3 of those things? Fine. I agree with you totally now. We have come to an agreement. That's exactly the Islamic model. There is a hadith narrated by Ibn Mas'ud. Yes, Ibn Mas'ud is one of the companions. He says, the Prophet said, "Inna ahadakum liyakuna fi batni ummihi 40 yawman nutfa, thumma yakuna 'alaqatan ba'da dhalika, thumma yakuna mudghatan ba'da dhalik." He says that certainly one of you is going to be in your mother's womb for 40 days as a nutfa. A nutfa is basically the stage. It's a particular genome stage, embryological stage, whereby the baby has not been formed into a kind of a clinging type reality. It doesn't cling yet. It doesn't cling yet. ثم يكون علقة بعد ذلك ثم يكون مضغة بعد ذلك. Nutfa really is a sperm drop, so it hasn't formed yet. It hasn't taken its form. 40 days. Some scholars of Islam have said that 40 days you cannot have an abortion before 40 days. Some scholars have said 120 days.
Did this at school? Yeah, I don't know. Yes, it's a only
So maybe in RE you took 120, but there are two schools of thought in Islam.
both in.
I think Imam Malik and the Maliki school of thought is 40 days because of what does thumma mean here? This is a long discussion Arabic. Point being, this correlates with the 40-day period of when the human becomes a human, according to your definition, because it has the heartbeat
So
now.
we wouldn't disagree.
Huh?
So we don't disagree.
We don't
The
disagree.
long end-
We don't disagree. In certain circumstances, we would say here, abortion is not allowed after 40 days. Or you could say, in some schools of thought, 120 days. It's not allowed unless some scholars of Islam say the woman is in danger. Her life is in danger. Or her, like, it's a serious health risk. Or some scholars of Islam say if there's some kind of really like impending circumstance or extraneous variable that cannot be controlled. So really, this is an example of where Islam correlates quite strongly with what we know of 21st century phenomena. From that perspective, the model that we put forward is that we say generally abortion is not a good thing. We don't want abortion to happen, but sometimes it has to happen, and if it does have to happen, there are guidelines that have to be followed. That's the Islamic position. Does that make sense?
I agree with you in many, many respects. And by the way, you are a wonderful speaker. I wish I could speak like that.
Thank you.
It's fabulous. But I think it's like, for me, it's all that choice element of that carrying a baby for 9 months can be a traumatizing, extremely difficult experience. And sometimes I think it should be an extreme circumstance, but instead just personal choice.
Do you agree that I'm guessing from the undertone of what you're saying, or kind of from the subtextual, I'm getting here a subtext. And the subtext behind the pretext of what you're actually saying suggests to me that you're a feminist, right? Okay, good.
Very strongly.
Okay, very strongly, which is another discussion I can have with you, no problem. But before we have that discussion, feminism presupposes an equality between men and women in social, political and economic realms. Would you agree that human beings should not take the lives of other human beings?
I want to know what you're going to say. It depends on when you decide that something is a human being.
Yeah, so you've agreed that the way you've described human being. يا إخوة اسكتوا اخفضوا أصواتكم اخفضوا أصواتكم. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I was just trying to tell them to be quiet. Now, but you see, this is the thing. Whether it's a man or a woman, even on feminism, the same logic would have to apply. Let's assume that you can take a baby out of an incubator. They found new technologies. It's not an incubator anymore, they found something else. Now you can have a child that can live at 3 months outside of the mother's womb.
Then reduce the law.
Pardon?
Then reduce the law.
Reduce the law.
I genuinely agree with you. The second they get that technology, it should go
No,
down.
but-
right now,
But
it's the woman's choice until the baby.
No,
can
but
live
hold
by
on.
itself.
the thing is, that doesn't go along with what you said before. Because what you said is what makes a human, not the fact that he can live or she can live outside of the womb of the mother. But if he or she has neurological pathways, or if it has a heartbeat, or if it can touch and feel. Now, the fact that it's interdependent upon the mother, the host, to take its nutrients through the umbilical cord or whatever it may be, that doesn't take away from the fact that it's still a human, living human. Do you get what I mean? For example, if someone was hospitalized and they couldn't make do without being dependent on a life support machine, they cannot be detached from it. Now, that is an artificial reality which they are dependent upon. Whereas in the case of the child, the baby, the genome in the mother's womb, it's a living reality which is dependent on. The only thing here that's different is the artificial nature of that thing which that person is dependent on. So a 60-year-old person who's in a vegetated state and is dependent upon a life support machine, that person is in exactly the same situation as a baby, 3 months, depending upon the mother for its nourishment. The only difference is the nature of that which is dependent upon. But that shouldn't matter. That shouldn't matter whatsoever, because who cares if it's a living thing that you're dependent upon, or if it's a non-living thing that you're dependent upon. It doesn't have any epistemic weight that you have on one hand something which is living that you're dependent upon to live, and on the other hand you have something which is not living. Do you get it?
I do get it. It's
So
very clever, I do get it.
Yeah, so from that angle we say that the law should be reduced from 6 months to 40 days, or even at maximum 3 months, from 6 months to 3 months. Why? Because, well, it makes sense from that perspective we just talked about. Even from a scientific perspective, it makes sense. We're not even talking about ensoulment or viability from a spiritual perspective, which is where obviously Catholics get their kind of beef with this, because they believe that conception occurs. Are you Catholic yourself? No, sorry. So, you believe that, they believe that, what do you call it? Yeah, they believe that upon conception, that's when viability happens. That's when the baby is viable now. The baby is not becoming. So for us, as Muslims, we don't have that issue. We don't believe that. We simply don't believe that. It's still a nutfa until at least 40 days. Yeah, so which is more in line with the scientific reality of today anyways. But also in line with that, I mean, generally speaking, more in line with the law, the British law, which we don't care about too much. Generally speaking, it doesn't. I mean, a lot of people have become very legalistic in their approach. If something is legal, then it's morally okay. If it's not legal, it's not morally okay. This kind of approach is not healthy to philosophical discussion, really. Because what can be legal today can be illegal tomorrow. What can be legal tomorrow can be legal today. Anyways, this is all very subjective and relative.
You're just so smart.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm just massively, I can't speak like that, it's nice to hear.
Well, I mean, we try our best, we try our best. Let's take a step back now and think about naturalism and atheism. I genuinely...
I'd love to... Wait, are you a Muslim? I'd love to know what you have to say as a woman and a Muslim. Like, as both combined things, I'd just love to hear what you have to say on the matter. On what? On the matter, like on abortion. Oh, okay. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. If she, that's fine. I'm going to leave it as that. That's abortion. Done, yeah? Done and dusted. Done, finished. Okay, good.
If I can interject, you're saying, this is the woman's choice, but you have to think about what about the baby? The baby cannot talk. The only thing he has to do is feed and cry, but he is alive and he wants to be alive. So saying that this is my choice, you have to think as well the baby choice. Baby, sure, he wants to live. He wants to grow and stuff.
Want anything though? When you're in the womb, you don't want anything. You just.
I think
I think we've done the abortion. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, now abortion is done. I want to introduce you to another topic. I want to tell you something from an Islamic perspective, yeah? Something I don't really, for some reason, I haven't emphasized here, talking to people, but I want to speak to you about it. So, do you know, for us, this is going to sound completely, to secular ears, this is going to sound completely ridiculous. But I'm ready to make that statement, okay? Do you know? wait.
It's going to be in Arabic.
No, I'm going
to. Because I'm about to be so long.
No. To secular ears, this is going to sound incredibly. Do you know? I'll tell you something about the Islamic theology.